The night before I was received into the Catholic Church, I couldn't sleep. So I did what I'd done every night for a year. I got up and read apologetics, and somewhere around 2 a.m., it occurred to me that I now knew roughly 400 arguments about Catholicism and almost nothing about being Catholic. Nobody warns you about that gap. The internet is wall-to-wall with debates, my channel included. You can find 10,000 hours of people arguing about justification, and almost nobody telling you what actually happens after you cross. What the first year feels like, what it costs that no one itemizes, what turns out to be nothing like the brochure, in both directions. So this video is the one I needed at 2 a.m. that night. 7 things nobody told me before I became Catholic, and I want to be precise about what this is not. It's not 7 more reasons to convert. A couple of these are warnings. One of them still stings. If you're a Protestant who's been watching this series and feeling the floor tilt, this is the honest travel report from the far side. And if you're a cradle-Catholic, stick around, because number 2 is about you, and I say it with love. Number 1 starts, of all places, in a folding chair. Here's a thing about converts by argument. We arrive ready. By the time I walked into a parish office and said the sentence out loud, I'd read the Catechism, the Council of Trent, and more church fathers than most seminarians. I had, I estimated, maybe 2 or 3 open questions left. I was prepared to be received that weekend, honestly. The church looked at all that preparation and said, "Wonderful. The classes start in September. They run until Easter. 9 months. In a parish hall, on a folding chair, with donuts, next to a guy who was there because his fiancée's grandmother insisted, going over material I could have taught. Week 4 was, Who is Jesus? I'd been leading Bible studies for 15 years. I sat in a metal chair and learned who Jesus is, again, badly, from a volunteer catechist with a flip chart. And nobody told me that the waiting, the formation. Because here's what those 9 months did that no book had done. They broke the habit of being the smartest scholar in my own religion. For 20 years, my faith had moved at the speed of my reading, me deciding, at my pace, what I'd believe next. The church made me wait, on her calendar, with the fiancé guy. And somewhere around February, I understood. This is the lesson. You are not the author of this. You are being received into something, and receiving happens on the giver's schedule. The church has been baptizing people at Easter since before Nicaea. She was not going to accelerate 2 millennia of rhythm because a guy with a YouTube reading list felt ready. If you're converting and the wait feels insulting, it's not an obstacle before the door. It's the door. Now the awkward one. And cradle-Catholics, I'm saying this in front of you on purpose. Nobody told me that I would show up vibrating with 2,000 years of discoveries, Ignatius, the real presence, Acts chapter 15, and find that a large portion of my new parish regards all of it roughly the way you regard your home's electrical wiring. Essential, presumably fine. Never think about it. I'd spent a year fighting my way to doctrines that people around me had never once examined, couldn't defend, and in some cases didn't actually believe. The surveys on Catholic belief in the real presence are their own genre of heartbreak. Look them up. And here is the trap nobody flagged, because it nearly got me. Convert zeal curdles fast. There's a species of new Catholic, extremely online, freshly minted, who spends year 1 correcting everybody. The priest's liturgy, the parish's music, grandma's devotions, and becomes, within 18 months, insufferable to every actual human in his pew. I felt the pull. When you've bled for a truth, watching people yawn at it reads as betrayal, and correction feels like charity. It mostly isn't. It's pride, wearing a scapular. What broke the spell for me was an old man named Gus, a daily mass guy, who I mentally filed under doesn't know his faith, because he'd never heard of the Council of Chalcedon. Then his wife got sick. And I watched Gus, over 2 years, do more Christianity per week than I'd managed in my whole apologetics career. Turns out he knew things about the faith that aren't in any of my books, because he'd been practicing it since Truman. The wiring analogy cuts the other way too. The house has had power for 70 years. Gus was warm from it. I was the one holding a wiring diagram in a cold room. So, converts, your knowledge is real, and the church needs it. Bring it humbly, or you'll bring it uselessly. And cradle-Catholics, befriend a convert this year. We're annoying, and we know where everything is in the Catechism, and honestly, you could use us. Because half of you are sitting on a treasure you've never opened, and we cannot shut up about what's inside. This one sounds like a criticism. It's the opposite. I came from a church built to hold my attention. A band that opened with 3 songs engineered to lift. A preacher who was, no argument, a better speaker than nearly any priest I've heard since. Coffee in the lobby, lights, screens. Sunday was produced, and produced well, for me, for my engagement. And nobody told me that after the honeymoon, 6 months maybe, there would come a wet, Tuesday-feeling Sunday, where the hymns were thin, the homily wandered, a baby screamed through the consecration, and I would sit there thinking, I'm bored. Is something wrong? Nothing was wrong. Something was finally right, and it took me a year to see it. The Mass is not produced for my engagement, because the Mass is not aimed at me. It's aimed at God. I spent 20 years at services whose implicit question was, how was it for you? And the Mass never once asks me that. It would proceed identically if I were asleep, absent, or dead. And there's the secret. That's why it can carry you when you're any of those things inside. A worship service that depends on your feelings collapses precisely on the days your feelings fail. The liturgy holds you up on those days like a stretcher. And stretchers are boring. And so are hospital beds, and marriage vows, and every other thing that holds humans when their enthusiasm runs out. Boredom at Mass is what it feels like when worship stops being about your attention span. Stay in it. It's teaching you to pray past yourself, which, an old priest told me in confession once, is the only kind of prayer that was ever going anywhere. Speaking of confession, what nobody told me about confession is the schedule of the fear. The first time is genuinely awful. I won't sugarcoat it. I sat in the parking lot for 40 minutes. I had 20 years of Protestant instinct screaming that this was unnecessary, plus the normal human horror of saying the actual things out loud to an actual person. My list had items on it I had never spoken in my life. I went in shaking, and the priest, who had heard, I now understand, literally everything in 40 years, was gentle and brisk and slightly bored in the most comforting possible way, like an ER doctor looking at what you were sure was fatal. And then he said the words, I absolve you, and I sat in my car afterward and cried like a man acquitted. The second time is scary too, because now you know it works. And going back means admitting the same sins came back with you. And then, around the 3rd or 4th time, the fear inverts, and confession quietly becomes the thing you cannot believe you lived without. Here's the mechanic no one explains. For 20 years I confessed to God directly, in my head, which meant the accuser and the defendant and the judge were all me, in there, in the dark, and forgiveness was a feeling I tried to generate and never quite trusted. Absolution moves the verdict outside your skull. Words in the air, through an authorized man, exactly as designed in John chapter 20. And you cannot argue with a sound wave the way you can argue with a feeling at 3 a.m. My scrupulous years and my license-taking years, both of them, turned out to be symptoms of the same disease. A courtroom with no judge. Now there's a judge, and the sentence, every single time, has been mercy plus 10 Hail Marys. If fear of confession is a wall between you and the church, the wall is made of exactly 2 visits. I've timed it. Now the one that stings. And I'm going to be careful here, because real people I love are behind this section. Every convert story mentions, "It was hard for my family," in one sentence, and moves on. Nobody told me the specifics. So here they are. There are friends from my old church, men I prayed with weekly for a decade, who have not had a meal with me since. Not from a dramatic confrontation. Those you can heal. From a quiet reclassification. I moved, in their mental filing, from brother to cautionary tale. And I know it, because I once did the filing myself, when a guy from our worship team became Orthodox. There's a woman who discipled me in college, who cried, not moved, cried, grief cried, because by her theology I had joined the thing the gospel rescued her from. My mother took 2 years to say the word Catholic, without a pause before it. And the pause was love. Which made it worse. And here's the part I'd want the 2 a.m. version of me to hear. You will be tempted to fix it with arguments. And arguments are the one tool that cannot fix it. Because their grief isn't a proposition, it's loss. They didn't lose a debate. They lost the version of you that confirmed their world. The only apologetics that touches that is time, plus staying kind, plus, this is the strange one, becoming visibly holier than you were, which is of course the one variable you can't fake and can't rush. Jesus said the thing about households divided, Luke chapter 12, and I'd read it 100 times as an abstraction. It has a taste. Nobody tells you. What I can report from further down the road, some of it comes back. One of those men calls me again. It took 4 years and a funeral. My mother asks questions now, real ones. And the friendships forged inside the church, with people who watched what it cost, went deeper, faster than almost anything from before. The bill was real, and I'd pay it again tomorrow. But it's a bill, and you should see it before you sign. Because Jesus also said the thing about counting towers and costs. And he meant it kindly. Quick one, practical one. Online Catholicism, the country I converted from, is a land of Latin chant, patristics debates, liturgical outrage, and everyone caring, loudly, all the time. Parish Catholicism, the country I actually live in, is a land of felt banners, casseroles, a homily about being nicer, and a bulletin. Nobody told me the exchange rate between these 2 countries, and my first year I kept trying to spend internet currency at the parish and finding it worthless. 2 warnings from this. First, if your entire formation is Catholic YouTube, again, my channel included, you are being formed by the arguments and the outrages, which are real but curated. And you can arrive at a normal parish and feel scammed. Don't. The parish is the real church. The internet is the church's comment section. Second, the reverse mistake. Some converts respond by parish shopping for the perfect liturgy, the way they once church shopped for the perfect preacher, which is the old Protestant search engine running on new fuel. And I say that as a man who caught himself doing it. Pick a parish. Stay. Let it be mediocre at you. Gus is there, not on YouTube. And the Eucharist at the guitar mass is exactly as much Jesus as the Eucharist under the fiddleback chasuble. The scandals are real too. I won't pretend otherwise. And my second year included headlines that gutted me. The church is a hospital that employs some sick doctors. I knew that from the data before I joined. And knowing it from inside is different. You stay for the medicine, which never stopped being real. That's not a slogan. Some months it's a discipline. Last one. The one nobody told me because I don't think most people ever had it diagnosed. For 20 years, underneath my very confident Protestantism, there ran a low hum I couldn't name. Every sermon, some part of me was auditing. Is that right? Is that what the verse means? Every doctrinal question was ultimately coming to my desk, because in my system there was no other desk, and some deep floor of me knew my desk wasn't qualified. I didn't call it anxiety. I called it discernment, and it never once turned off. Every book might move the foundations. Every disagreement was a threat, because if I was wrong about this, what else? My faith was strong. Hear me. But it was strong the way a man gripping a rope is strong. All forearm, all the time. Nobody told me the grip could end. It ended slowly, the first year, and I noticed it in the strangest place. I heard a homily I mildly disagreed with. And nothing happened in my chest. No audit spun up. Because whether Father's take on the parable was optimal had stopped being structural. The faith wasn't resting on my desk anymore. There's a church, with a referee, older than my questions, that has survived worse readers than me, and I'm in it. And I can now disagree, wonder, and not know things inside a house that doesn't shake when I lean on the walls. Chesterton said, "The church is the only thing that saves a man from the degrading slavery of being a child of his age." I'd add, from the exhausting slavery of being his own magisterium. The hum is gone. The rope became a floor. I read scripture more than I did as a Protestant, and I read it the way you walk on ground rather than the way you check ice. That's the thing I'd tell the man in the folding chair and the woman watching this at 2 a.m. with the floor tilting. It's not just that the arguments resolve. It's that the noise under the arguments finally, mercifully stops. 7 things. The weight is the door. Bring your fire humbly. The boredom is load-bearing. Confession costs 2 scary visits and pays forever. The bill of relationships is real. Count it, and know some of it comes back. Live in the parish, not the comment section. And the anxiety, the one you maybe haven't named yet, ends. If you're a convert or a candidate, tell me in the comments the thing nobody told you. I mean it. I'll compile the best ones into a follow-up, because this list should have been easier for me to find. If you're the 2 a.m. Protestant, the arguments are all here on the channel whenever you want them, starting with a coffee shop. But this video was for the other question, the one under the arguments. And the travel report is, the water's cold for a season, and then it's home. If this series has helped you, subscribe and share this one specifically. It's the video the algorithm won't know who needs. This is actually Catholic. Gus, if your grandson ever shows you this, I was the cold one, and you were the wiring. Thanks. God bless.